Hello everyone, I'm Charlotte Defolie and I will be presenting today a collaborative project between past and present PhD candidates from the Sociality and Health in Primate research group in Germany. So it's not an exhaustive review of the literature, but more of a highlight of significant contributions from primate research in supporting or questioning our understanding of the links between sociality and parasitism. There is a marked variation in animal sociality. We all know this with solitary animal, facultative associations, and also permanent group living with some individuals forming strong and long-lasting relationships. And this transition from solitary to social life created both costs and benefits, including an increased risk of exposure to parasites and pathogens. So originally, it was postulated that there was a positive correlation between group size and infection risk as a major cause of group living several decades ago. But now there is a growing body of research suggesting that the links between sociality and infectious disease are much more complex, with mixed outcomes on transmission of and susceptibility to pathogens and connections at the different level of sociality, from groups to dyadic interaction and individual variation in sociality. In mammals, there is only 23% of all species living in permanent groups, with 9% being pair living, while in primates, primates deviate from this general pattern, with approximately 66% of genera living in permanent mixed-sex groups and 29% of species being pair living. So primates are an excellent model to investigate links between sociality and parasites, given their exceptional diversity across species, within species, and between individuals in their social behavior. And you have this example here with 3 species beings living in very large group, pair group living, and facultative living species. And so, as I said before, there was this evidence indicating that the intensity of infection was linked with host group size with directly and environmentally transmitted parasites because of the more frequent contact, so body to body, or with environmental contamination with feces in larger groups, promoting transmission of readily infectious parasites. However, group size is a very simple measurement, and it has not been always linked to increased parasitism, and especially in primate studies. So it's insufficient to explain the link between sociality and parasite infection. And I have a few examples for just to debunk this group size parasite link. First of all, bigger groups usually have better access to higher quality food patches, and this can give them a better ability to cope with parasitism. With also an encounter dilution effect for mobile parasites or vector transmitted parasites, where there is a constant attack rate targeting one host at a time, with the same number of parasites spread among more available hosts, then the greater host densities will drive a lower per individual disease risk. And finally, the size of the group does not say anything about its density or its cohesion. So not all group members will interact evenly, not all group members will be at the same distance. And this has a very important role also for parasite infection. So connectedness and network properties then gives another another point of view at the dynamic and a finer scale of social interactions. because individuals are not interacting evenly across the group, and they tend to have interaction within subgroups, so they're not exposed to heterogeneous parasite risk, homogeneous parasite risks, and it depends on their network structure and their respective position in it. So in primates, higher infection risk of gastrointestinal parasites is associated with centrality in grooming networks, such as this monkey in green, which is more central than the monkey in red. However, there are also studies showing that collective hygienic behavior, such as grooming, can bring individuals in close contact, but help them fight certain infections, with, for example, lice and ticks, such as it was shown with these Japanese macaques, but it also is bring them more in contact, so increasing their exposure to other potentially infectious agents such as gastrointestinal parasites. So there are also other studies showing that the spread of directly transmitted parasite can be hampered by the progressive acquisition of resistance among group members, and increasing the chance that infection will fade out. And being central and immune in this case is a very good benefit for the group, because the central individuals usually are seen as super spreaders, but there they can be slowing the disease spread once they have acquired immunity. At the dyadic level, social interaction play a big role. So first of all, on the competition and dominance level, it has been shown that dominants are having an increased exposure to parasites because they have usually a priority access to food and to mating partners, so they increase their exposure to parasites. But also that competition and dominance is increasing susceptibility to disease. And this is due to increased physiological stress, either in dominants or subordinates, depending on the social structure of the group. Skewed access to food, usually in subordinates. And also trade-offs between reproduction and immunity. However, most of these studies bring these results were done on despotic and stable hierarchies, and so it will be also very interesting to look at the other side of the coin and look at more egalitarian species, and also during times of instability in the hierarchy. Social interactions also have a benefit on infection, actually, because in primates it has been shown that social buffering of stress by strong and long-lasting bonds can reduce susceptibility to parasites or infectious disease. And also, social learning of anti-parasite behaviors such as self-medication can help prevent or reduce the effects of parasite infection. And this can be done by looking at mothers, for example, adults, but also when adults are not leaving the youngster do it, it can be done looking at pairs, as it was shown also in many species of primates. Something that's really interesting is that self-medication was first observed in primates, but it's widespread in animals. And it is sure that we have also a lot more to do on this topic in the next years to come. Individual behavior also has an importance when we look at parasite infection. Like in human, non-human primates have avoidance behavior. And there is a link between copulation rate and prevalence of sexually transmitted disease in primates. And in olive baboons, actually, there is a sexually transmitted disease similar to similar to syphilis. And mating avoidance was observed when female avoided males infected with this STD. There is also active social distancing like we do nowadays with COVID-19. As chimpanzee will ostracize other chimpanzees infected, for example, with polio. Mandrill will also select safe social partner and avoid interactions with group partners that they perceive have fecal transmissible parasite. And this is interesting because we can look at the mechanism to perceive infection. And yes, so finally, individual behavior also can have a role on immunization and the gut microbiome. So it has not been yet looked at in primates, but the possibility that social relationship can provide gradual exposure to parasite and lead to acquired immunity is exciting, and it should be, I think, in the next year, new avenue of research. Also, social relationship and their facilitation to acquire beneficial microbes such as the gut microbiome is a very rich field of research at the moment. And it has been shown that, for example, early life microbiome composition influences later parasite susceptibility, and that the gut microbiome itself affects social behavior of the host to promote its own transmission. So this has also probably an effect on transmission of other parasites. And it raises new question on how microbial commensals influence social network and the evolution of sociality. So I've shown that group size is just an old suspect, and there are many more new players, and this is a complex relationship between primate sociality and parasite infection, with more fluid and fine-tuned connection between the different levels of socialities between and within groups. And we need to expand our understanding on how social networks and individual behaviors are linked with overall health. With this, I thank you all for listening, and I thank my 7 amazing collaborators.